Cheers to Charlotte.
Cheers to Wilbur.
Cheers to Fern.
Story Stack.
It's like book club,
But it's more than books, and it's not quite a club.
Woo!
I mean, it still burns, but mezcal is so much better than vodka. All right. Welcome back to Story Stack. My name is Ansley.
I'm Gabriel.
and I'm Lily.
And we are back with another Cocktails and Classics. For those of you that are new here, this is a special episode we do that encourages you to read the classics because they are not scary, they are not intimidating, they are something that you can enjoy over a drink with a friend. And this is our way of bringing a little bit of that chaos to you. And today, our classic is Charlotte's Web.
This was suggested by Gabriel. He pitched this book to the group, and at least for me, was definitely skeptical when it comes to Charlotte's Web. I mean, it's a classic. It's a story we all know. There's no, spoiling it anymore. It's been around since the 1950s, and it has, made an impact generations after generation. But going over and reading it again, because I don't remember reading it for a first time, but I'm sure it was either read to me, and of course I saw the movie that released in 2006 with Dakota Fanning. This book, does so many beautiful, wonderful things that there's a reason that this has stood the test of time. There's a reason that a movie was made over 50 years after the original publication of this book, because there are just characters that stick with you well past the page. It makes you cry, and it's a children's book. It has complex thoughts that even me as an adult reading it am astounded by just the depth that E.B. White manages to go into with such simple, prose.
Yeah, like Lily said, I was the one who suggested it for our Cocktails and Classics episode. This is a personal conviction that I've had for a long time that Charlotte's White... There's no way I've had one shot of mezcal. Oh, boy. Charlotte's Web is a literary classic. That's not with no modifier. There's no, it's a literary classic for children, or it's a literary classic that you can share with your family. No, it is a literary classic, period. You can put it up with the likes of the Hemingway or Virginia Woolf, or pick any classic author. The sheer depth of themes that gets approached in this book, and the sheer level of writing skill and the lasting legacy just puts Charlotte's Web in the big leagues, and I'll fight for Wilbur until the day I die.
I think one of the other things that's really special about this book, and I think Lily, you might have touched on it, is that it does go into such complex themes, but it does it in such a simple way that I think it's a twofold approach of reaching the adults that might be, rereading it from their childhood, or a parent reading it to their child for the first time. That sort of the simplicity of it makes it so much easier to accept the inevitability of things like change and death and fear. But because it is so simple, it makes it easier to accept. And so it's almost more reassuring to an adult who is worried about these things, because you understand the finality of these things. But then the other side of it is the kids reading it. I think there's I grew up with a lot of siblings. So I grew up, and the oldest of those siblings. So I was constantly surrounded by little kids growing up. And I think that there is such a big misconception or an underestimation of what children can understand. And it sounds silly, but we infantilize children. Mm-hmm. They are capable of understanding death. They are capable of understanding change. They are capable of understanding the importance of friendship. You just have to explain it to them at a level that they can understand. And that doesn't mean creating these silly metaphors of oh, your fish or your dog went to go live at the barn. We've all heard that, but you can just tell your kid, yeah, your dog got sick and he died. And that happens. And that doesn't mean that his life wasn't important or that you loved him any less. And now you just get to remember how much you loved him. And a kid can 1000% understand that. And it makes it easier if you build that foundation in a kid for them to be an adult and to know how to process these emotions and how to deal with them. And I think that this book is just such a beautiful case study of that.
There are lines that the writer in me has underlined and marked just because of the simplicity but vividness of like the way that E.B. White describes certain things. The start of chapter 11 is, the next day was foggy. Everything on the farm was dripping wet. The grass looked like a magic carpet. The asparagus patch looked like a silver forest. What? That's just beautiful. Like, to me, like, that's just lovely. And then, like, just the next paragraph has a line, the web glistened in the light and made a pattern of loveliness and mystery like a delicate veil. And it's so simple and not overhanded with, like, poeticness. It's just lovely. And, I mean, there are so many lines like that in this book that you just, as a writer, have to appreciate the way that E.B. White is viewing the world and conveying it to children.
I also think we would be remiss not to hype up Mr. White. Not only did this man bring us Charlotte's Web, not only did this man bring us Stuart Little, but he also wrote one of the English textbooks that we literally use in our college level classes. And so I think, the man knows what he's talking about. You were in the hands of somebody that knows what they're doing. But I also think it's such a neat reminder that children's literature does not make it any less than because it's for kids, because it's aimed at kids, because it's written in a simple way. Like, it is still a 1000% valid and important type of writing.
Ansley, I'm so glad you brought that up, because talking about E.B. White as a character who exists in history is so fascinating to me. So yeah, E.B. White, he didn't write. He created the revised version of Elements of Style, which is the singular handbook that is used for writers, for creating or utilizing English language to create stories. And E.B. White was a massive proponent of, to dumb it down, the less the better. The more that you can say in the less words, the better. And you can...
Show, don't tell.
Did I just do show, don't tell, but with too many words? I'm so sorry. The spirit of E.B. White's going to haunt me. But if you get into E.B. White's ethos as a writer, like, there's no better way to say it. He was militant about this, like, just stripping everything you can say down to the most basic level. Like, just to give an example, E.B. White hated the practice of turning nouns into verbs. Like, for example, you could say that E.B. White authored Charlotte's Web. That is correct in the English language. E.B. White would kick you out of his classroom for doing that because you could have easily used the verb. E.B. White wrote Charlotte's Web.
I love the fact that you went for like an actual real example that was like, you had to think about that for a second, because to me, the most obvious is Google. You Google something.
E.B. White would have hated the term Google.
I almost said he would have fought Mark Zuckerberg with his bare hands, but Mark Zuckerberg is not Google. I had to catch myself. The mezcal is strong.
The mezcal is strong. We're making literary like dream fights right now.
Yeah. Put him in the ring. I want to see it. All of that being said, if there's some chance, if there is some possible way that in the big 2026, you don't know the plot of Charlotte's Web, it's real straightforward. The book opens with Fern Arable, who is a 7-8-year-old girl living with her parents. They have had what's the term for pigs? Like a litter of kitten, but it's not. What is the term for pigs?
Piglet?
Well, not
is it
like
not piglet?
You want to know
no
what the
piglet,
litter
but I mean
is.
like what the group of piglets is called. Like they've had a litter of kittens is what, like it's a litter. What is it for pigs? I bet it's something cute.
Oh, it's a litter.
It is a litter.
There we
Okay.
go. We just
All
use
right.
the same terms.
Whatever.
Sometimes.
They've got a litter of pigs, and her father, Mr. Arable, is getting ready to go and kill the runt. And it's all very matter of fact. This is just how things are. And Fern is so appalled by this that she demands the pig be hers, and she raises Wilbur until he's a month old, and like, this is her pet.
If I was a 7-year-old girl, if I was a 21-year-old girl, I would also be so upset by this. No, don't kill the runt. And this might be the 4'9" woman in me speaking, okay?
Absolutely fern coded right now.
But just because something is small doesn't mean it's not valuable. I understand it from a farm perspective, okay? It's not going to make you enough meat. It's not really worth it. It's going to be a lot of effort to raise because it's going to need extra care. But honestly, props to Fern for being willing and able to see the value in this runt of a pig and raise it to be award-winning.
Side note, I think it's so funny that you use the phrase willing and able just because the Noah Kahn song has been stuck in my head all morning. The whole time we were recording earlier, it was literally playing in a loop in my head.
That's probably why the phrase came out of my mouth.
Anyways, I forgot where we were. Oh, okay. So yes, Fern takes in this pig. She refuses to let anybody touch it. Once it gets to be a month old, her parents are like, all right, this pig is too big now. Like, you have to go and sell it to your uncle Zuckerman, who lives down the street. And so she does that. And then Wilbur moves into this farm. He is around other farm animals. And I think this is really where the beginning, outside of like the idea that, you know, being small is not a crime, being small is not worth being killed over. And as a special note for myself, that there's a poem, like a shitty Tumblr blog poem.
Oh, yeah.
About the whole, it's like from the perspective of a spider being killed. And it's like, if I'm killed for the crime of being small, then let death be kinder than life. Like, it's a whole bit. But it was genuinely so devastating to me that I make my fiance collect spiders that I find in the house and take them outside because the idea of killing them genuinely makes me sob. So that's the whole first maybe 20 pages of Charlotte's Web, is just being small is not a crime worthy of death. So we get that. But then once we get to the farm, I think we were really focused on the idea of Wilbur being an outsider and being in an unfamiliar area. And it's not that any of the other barnyard animals aren't kind to him, but they're not out of their way kind. They're polite, I guess would be the better way to say it. They're neutral. They're not dogging on him. They're not being mean to him, but they're not being kind to him either. And so
they're not a community yet.
Right. They're not a community. That's a perfect way of putting it. And so he's scared and he desperately wants a friend. And I think that it's the bluntness and the simplicity of the writing make it so that regardless of what age you are, you know exactly what Wilbur's feeling.
It's very reminiscent of young, like, children going to school for the first time and seeing a bunch of different types of people, some which are not kind. Like, not everyone is going to be your friend. And when Wilbur gets to Fern's uncle's farm for the first time, he quickly experiences these sort of negative interactions with the fellow barnyard animals. The goose isn't helpful. The rat is mean. There's not really a place for Wilbur. And for that beginning little portion is saying, I want a friend, I want a friend. I mean, the goose kind of is helpful, maybe a little bit as far as like, run away. You're supposed to run away now. Oh, don't you do this, silly boy. But like, Wilbur is clearly like the child that is not really respected. He hasn't earned his place in the barn yet.
And as a side note with the goose, as far as going back to like E.B. White's credibility, and you were in the hands of an author who knows what he's doing, the way that he writes the goose was genuinely one of my favorite parts of the book.
I believe the goose at one point says flibbity jibbity jabber.
Like, he just repeats himself over and over again. And it's one of those things of like, yeah, that is how a goose would talk, actually. Yeah. You've aced it on your first try. Like,
wait, I need to talk about this actually exact moment where Wilbur is getting used to the farm, getting used to a new community, a new group, and his interaction with the goose. There is an entire digression in that interaction where between the goose and Wilbur, they talk about whether Wilbur would be more happy in the leisurely captivity of the farm or happy being free. And E.B. White could have just like left it at that level, but it goes a little bit deeper where they genuinely like kind of like philosophize about it. And this is what I love about Charlotte's Web so much is like this is full on a philosophical like conversation of whether you would be more happy in leisurely captivity or absolute freedom. And E.B. White's just not afraid to go there. He's like, no, children can understand this complex philosophical concept.
To sort of make the... Let me think.
Sorry, the immediate...
Because the word's not coming to my brain that I'm trying to actually think about. To sort of speak on behalf of the goose.
We're defending...
As our resident silly goose, Lily, what is your take?
Defending, ending the goose.
For saying like flibberty, gibberty, jabber, whatever the goose says, okay, flibbity, gibbity, whatever it is. The goose is also the one that says the world is a wonderful place when you're young. And I highlighted that and I was like, there is some wisdom in the goose, even though the goose is always stammering and saying things 3 times and restarting her sentences. There is a sort of intelligence there that is, you cannot, it's not simple. The goose isn't an idiot. The goose is just the goose. And that is who she is. And she is experiencing life in her own way. And maybe I am like really thinking deep about this goose. But in all the animals, Templeton is kind of an ass. And
Templeton is the rat.
Who has the most prestigious name in the book, actually.
Which is very cute.
And it makes sense. And the goose is kind of self-absorbed and more worried about, her children, valid, than she is about Wilbur and actually helping Wilbur. She gives some good advice, but there is clearly depth and thought behind each of these maybe seemingly background, meaningless characters that just add so much depth to the plot of this book. And they all come together in such a beautiful way as the book develops that, you can't imagine any of them not being around for Wilbur's growth.
I love that you bring that up. And I'm kind of I'm gonna speed run through the plot
Please.
a little bit just to make the point that I want to make off of that. And it kind of actually combines both of your points because it's not E.B. White with all of the Barnyard characters, even the ones that are the most overlooked, has a fantastic way of highlighting their accomplishments and the fact that they are integral to the plot. All of them, at some point or another, without them, wouldn't have not reached the ending that it did without them. But E.B. White doesn't just leave it there. Like, it's not just acknowledging them. He does, it's like my favorite part of the whole book, and it happens more than once, where he, the writing says, I'm trying to think of a concrete example to walk through it. But it's really when Charlotte dies. At this point, Wilbur was in the barn, felt very alone, makes a friend through Charlotte, which is the spider that's in the barn. They sort of team up, try to come up with a way to prevent Wilbur from being killed and made into Christmas dinner. And her solution is to write compliments to him in her web. And the whole town sees it as some sort of miraculous thing. They never, it's not even that they don't acknowledge the spider. It's that they repeatedly say, well, a spider can't write, so this must be a miracle. That Wilbur ends up competing in the county fair, and he doesn't win the first prize, but he does win his own special, distinguished prize for being this miraculous pig. And at the end, once we get to the fair, it's been a couple of months over the span of the book at this point, and Charlotte has gone from the spry wanting to be Wilbur's friend spider in the barn that's writing messages to she's old and she's reaching the end of her life. She has her baby, she lays her eggs, and then she dies. And when she dies, E.B. White has a paragraph about, they clean up the fair, they reminisce on the specialties of this year, and Charlotte dies alone, and nobody even knows that all of it is thanks to her. but he leaves it there. And that is something that is so, so important. And it goes back to the idea of show, don't tell. It goes back to the idea of he is such a good writer, because one of the things that we're taught over and over and over again is the importance of timing in writing, and the importance of putting the details that you want on the page and letting the play speak for itself. And with that line, like, E.B. White's not telling you his thoughts about it. He's not telling you you should be mad on Charlotte's behalf that she's not getting credit for something that she 1000% deserves credit for. He's just saying she didn't get credit for it. But the way that he writes it, you as a reader are like, fuck that. She deserves the award. Everybody needs to make like shrines in Charlotte's honor. Like, he gets you so heated for her. And I think that's where it comes in beautifully, the idea of he doesn't ever just let anything lie on the page. Everything is there with so much intention to make you as the reader not only more determined to see the impact of the little guy, but to honor it. And the idea, and I think really the central idea of this book is not just that death is inevitable, not that it's something that you have to accept, and once you accept it, you can have a more peaceful life. I think there's a deeper angle to the book, which is just that no matter how overlooked we feel that something is, or we feel that it deserves to be overlooked, it has value. Every single life has value inherently because it's alive.
Ansley, I need you to know that you just explaining, not even reading the section of the part where Charlotte dies and she isn't remembered, you just explaining that portion of the book sent shivers down my spine. Like, that's how powerful like that sequence is.
Nobody of the hundreds of people that had visited the fair knew that a gray spider had played the most important part of all. No one was with her when she died. And that is the end of Charlotte's life. That is how it ends. And that I did not annotate because I was crying. And I don't believe in annotating things that are making me cry. But I literally stopped reading there. My fiance was on the couch and I was literally like, no, I'm going to read this out loud to you because what? And I am tearing up and devastated for this beautiful spider and this life. And I mean, you read this whole book and you get to that sort of like disappointing moment perhaps, and it's all seems to be for nothing. Like, Charlotte is dead. Like, no, you know, it was some pig. It was terrific. It was radiant, and it was all Wilbur, but it was all Charlotte. And this whole book is Wilbur basically getting credit for Charlotte's actions. And I mean, Wilbur's aware of it. Wilbur never once doubts Charlotte's beauty and amazingness and the fact that she is the one that is doing it all. I mean, if that is Wilbur's perspective that we are reading from when he is sort of reflecting on this sort of goodbye to Charlotte. But you go through this whole book and you don't go through it to get to Charlotte's death. You go through it for the scenes after, where Wilbur sort of copes with the loss of Charlotte, where Wilbur watches as Charlotte's babies are born and leave, and you're like mourning Charlotte's loss while also seeing how Wilbur moves forward in life. And I mean, it's so lovely that 3 of Charlotte's children choose to make webs in the barn with Wilbur. And because of one life, Wilbur now has 3 friends. And it's, I mean, a moment to reflect on the fact that just because a life is gone doesn't mean a life is gone from you. And that there is this sort of way of letting someone live on through you, even if they are past. And also the understanding that that is a specific life. Wilbur does, I mean, reflect on this sort of moment of like, yes, I love Charlotte's children, but it will never be Charlotte, and Charlotte will always have a special place in my heart. And that's enough for Wilbur it's not a sort of, I mean, debilitating sadness that he goes through. It is this sort of recognition that I have these friends and I also still have Charlotte, and it might look different. It's just beautiful.
And I think with that, like, there's a couple of points that I want to make to that, but it is like there's a reason the book doesn't just end with Charlotte's death. Like, that is the point that comes after, and it's teaching kids about how to process grief. And every single day of my life, I wake up and I want to punch Andrew Garfield in the face for the time he went on Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel after his mom passed, and he said that the grief he was feeling was just the expression of all of the love he wasn't able to share with her. Are you kidding me? I want to punch him every day in the face for that. But that is the gist of the last maybe 20 pages of this book, is Wilbur processing grief in a way that is accessible to children, which is one of the most important lessons for a kid to learn early on, I think. But then even going back to what you were saying about, none of the book would have even happened. Wilbur would have been turned into bacon if it wasn't for Charlotte. And when we think about this book, we think about Wilbur and we think about Fern, and we're aware of Charlotte. But it's another layer of E.B. White's just putting certain details down and letting you interpret them yourself. The book is not called Wilbur. The book is not called Fern. It's Charlotte's Web, because that is the most integral part of the book.
Wait, even elaborating on that, I was thinking about the title of this book before we started recording. I think it's called Charlotte's Web, specifically, not Charlotte, Charlotte's Web, because it is about the community and connections that Charlotte builds. Like, Charlotte is a truly selfless person. That's in finger quotes. A truly selfless spider, in that she sees her community and she sees Wilbur enter into it. And at the beginning of the book, Wilbur is useless. Like, that is how he's presented. And then Charlotte is like, no, I'm not going to let somebody exist in my world around me to be useless. Like, I will help you. And it's like, that's the web. Like, it is the community she builds around her. And ultimately it pays forward after her death at the end, when Wilbur carries on her legacy and also carries on with the children of hers that stay behind.
I also think such a striking part of the book to me is that you open and you're in Fern's perspective. You're in Fern Arable's perspective, the 7 or 8 year old girl. And, that is the strongest friendship in the book, is between her and Wilbur in those first couple of pages. But then by the end of it, it's not just that Fern is not present as much anymore. It is not just that she is a background character. Because again, E.B. White is putting on the page, she is actively more concerned about her new friendship with a boy in town. But there's no judgment in it at all. And I think in that, there's a couple of things. And it's, again, the brilliance of the writing is that it's addressing the fact that children are, I don't want to say fickle, because I feel like that has a negative connotation, but it's the idea that children bounce from things. And that's okay. Your kid's going to be really, really dedicated to something for a month. And then it's time to move on to the next thing. And that is just the nature of being a child. But the fact that there's no judgment in it is like an allowance of that, and almost like embracing that aspect of childhood. And that aspect of like the nature of children. But it's also, you as a reader, by the time you get to the end and that's being mentioned, you're not mad at it, because Wilbur has different friends now and he doesn't need Fern the way that he did in the beginning. And so it's not only addressing the idea that it is okay and it is normal for your friend groups to change and for you to lose close friends to you as you grow as different people, and that is normal and it happens and there's nothing wrong with it. But it's also the idea that that doesn't diminish any of the future friendships you might have, that your best friend will change over the course of your life. And not only is that normal, but it's a good thing, because you're growing as people and you might not grow in the same direction. I think just this book is only 200 something pages, and that's including illustrations in it. Like, there's a bunch of gaps in the text itself, but every single word almost is intentional and packs a punch if you're really giving it the respect that it deserves as a book, and not just as like a children's book. If you actually sit down with it and you dedicate yourself to getting what you're supposed to get from it, I feel like this could honestly be like a life book. Like, you could find this in like a self-help section, because it's got lessons on basically every major thing you're going to go through in your life.
That's so real.
I have lines underlined that are like, this is just a sentiment of life. And it's so amazing the capacity that a children's book can hold. And I think that it is worth revisiting, regardless of how old you are. You hear Charlotte's Web. I'm definitely too old for rereading Charlotte's Web. But I mean, I was in tears, and I know what's going to happen, and it's still so beautiful. And especially if you're a writer, there is something to be learned by E.B. White's ability to craft a sort of world in such a simple way. It is something worth revisiting. It's a book it stood the test of time, and I think it'll continue to stand the test of time.
I'm just so happy that for Cocktails and Classics, we finally read a book that isn't about British aristocracy. Oh my God, I was losing it. We did Frankenstein, we did Wuthering Heights, and we did Picture of Dorian Gray. All of them are British people being sad about being rich. I'm just happy for something else.
And let that be a lesson that classics aren't scary. Find the classics that you want to read.
And not all classics are just about unlikable people doing unlikable things. Apparently that is limited to British aristocracy because, I mean, I love Charlotte. I love Wilbur. I can't think of a character that I don't actually like in this entire book. Is there one character that we don't like? I mean, Templeton.
Templeton's a loser, but he's kind of fun because he's a loser.
But you grow to like him.
Exactly. By the end of it, you're like, okay, you're just you, and I'm kind of chill with you.
I also think one of the most important things in this book is that when you have a story about animals, I feel like there is an over tendency to, I don't know if that's a word. I'm going to run with it. There's an over tendency to sort of, I'm going to butcher this word, anthropomorphize them.
Close enough.
To make them more human than animal. Mm-hmm. And to sort of like a great example is The Wild Robot. I loved that movie. That was a beautiful movie. But all the animals in it and the robot in it act like people that just happen to be animals. You know what I mean? You could pitch that movie as like people that turned into animals, and this is what their lives look like now. With Charlotte's Web, I think part of the simplicity and part of the ability to just accept things is that they're acting exactly how an animal would act. You know, Templeton in the beginning is selfish and really only cares about himself. He's a rat. Yeah, he's foraging for food. He's trying to scavenge to stay alive. He doesn't necessarily have the time or the energy to form relationships and care about community in the way that the other animals do. But by the end of it, he grows to, at least a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so I think that that's another just such a beautiful element of this book is that it is, I think it's sort of a meta moment of, in the book, you know, they impress the idea when Fern starts talking about the fact that she can hear the animals talking, and all the adults in her life are like, well, animals don't talk. They actually go to a doctor at one point, her parents do, and the doctor tells them, well, I mean, maybe she can hear them. Who's to say that animals aren't talking and adults just don't care enough to pause to listen? That maybe they just can't hear it. And that is a lesson on the page, but it's also, I think, a meta lesson for your audience reading this book, in that you're reading about animals being animals, but that doesn't mean that you can't learn something from them.
This is, without a doubt, the most approachable classic that we've read here on Cocktails and Classics. Like, this is, I'm not going to say that this is the perfect book to pull up a drink with, because you might be a child that wants to read this book. However, like, the classics are and always will be approachable. And this is just the most approachable one. You could just tomorrow pick up Charlotte's Web, even if you haven't read a book in 20 years, and you will gain something from it, and you will feel like you're not being talked down to. Like, God, I love this book.
And one final note, how was the drink?
Oh my God, this was the best drink that we've had on this bit so far.
So good. Wait, Lily, go off about this drink.
I was so scared because there is egg white in this drink, okay? It's got mezcal. It's got something called velvet falernum, which none of us had ever had before. It has lime juice, grapefruit juice, simple syrup, and egg white. So it had like this nice foamy top, like Charlotte's Web, of course. And I was so scared because of the egg white. I've never consumed an egg white like that before. I loved it so much. It was really, like, genuinely refreshing.
It was delicious. And honestly, if you rewind this video, the first sip that I take, I genuinely, my jaw dropped while y'all were talking, and I sat here in shock for a second. I had a feeling when you were making it. I'm a big tequila girly. I'm a big citrus girly. If a drink has those things, I am probably going to enjoy it. The entire time you were making this drink, I was so hyped to try it, and it paid off exactly like how I thought it would. It was fantastic.
And if you love grapefruit, I mean, besides a Paloma, I can't think of like another typical grapefruit drink. It was so good. And the foam from the egg white, just, it adds another level of texture to it. I appreciate it. I rate this a solid, I don't know, 9.5 out of 10.
10 out of 10 for me. But also, I love the fact that you said layers, because I feel like that's very fitting for Charlotte Web with all of its layers of themes.
And all of the silk strands layering on top. Get drunk. Read Charlotte's Web.
Yeah.
Unless you're not of legal drinking age, then just read Charlotte's Web.